Let me just get this out of the way now. I'm nervous. And I'm grateful. So before I get started, would you hug the addict next to you, please? My name is Ava, and I'm still an addict. And let me tell you why I asked you to do that. On Friday night, Doug talked about when he got off the plane, how John gave him that hug. And when you're an addict coming from another area where you're totally unfamiliar, it's really hard to come to a place where you don't know anybody and act as if, right? And so you never know who the suffering addict is. And so if there are any suffering addicts in this room today, I hope we just covered you. Right? Okay. I want to thank the committee for asking an addict like me to come out and share. And I have to tell you that when John called me, I didn't understand why I was a spiritual speaker. Because I'm not real spiritual a lot of the time. And so, let me tell you, I was reminded that today this year was your 25th, which is the silver. Right? So I kind of get it now, right? You guys got jokes. And so anyway, I didn't understand why I was a spiritual speaker, and as always, more will be revealed, right? And so I'm really grateful to be here. It's been an amazing time. This is my first time in Canada. And so what I will tell you is that the love is in the details, and God prepared the way for me long before I got here, right? And so I tell this story, and now I could tell it to you. A couple things happened on the road before I got here. And 2 years ago, I was in Bermuda. And so I had no idea that I would be in Canada today. And so 2 years ago, I think it was 2 years ago, I was in Bermuda, and I met somebody from Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And it was really funny because God always puts me where I'm supposed to be. You know, and going back to giving that addict a hug so that they don't feel alone, I saw this woman, and she was teary-eyed, and it's I would like to think I'm from Bermuda because I've been there many times, right? I'm the chameleon, and I fit in where I get in, right? And long story short, I felt like I needed to embrace her, and so God led me to Sarah. She didn't want me to say her name. So he led me to Sarah, and I embraced her, and I let her know that she wasn't alone, and I offered to be there if she needed somebody. And Sarah's from Canada, right? And so we've been friends ever since. And so a couple weeks ago, I was sharing in Dallas, and I went to the women's panel, and just as I walked in the door, there was a woman sharing, and she was speaking French. So I got all excited because I thought she was from France, right? Yay! And she was from Canada. And so long before I got here, God prepared the way for me. Because when I got off the plane, Sarah picked me up. You know, and so I came to an area where I'm totally unfamiliar, and I feel at home because I have friends already. So thank you for doing that. And for those of you that welcomed me when I got here, thank you. Because like I said, you know, I don't want to be known as the speaker from California, the closing speaker. That's not who I am. I'm an addict, just like you. You know, and so when I get off the plane, it's like everybody has their turn to do this, right? It's just my turn. But it's also my way of being of service to this fellowship. And so that's how I see it. I don't want to be a celebrity, although, let me tell you a story. I told you that I'm a chameleon, right? And so I had an opportunity to share in Hollywood, so I thought I was going to be a star. And so I'll tell you the addict that I am, and I don't know if anybody else can relate, but when I go somewhere, it's really important. I used to be one of those addicts. I'm known as a look-good addict, right? It's important for me, not so much anymore, but when I first got here, that the look-good be in place. The hair, the makeup, the clothes, But when I was doing that, what I didn't tell you is the look-good was a fake. You know, and so today, it's real important to me. It's like I don't do the dress up anymore because usually whoever shows up when I dress up is not the person that I am. So today it's about being who I am because I come to a fellowship and I work steps and traditions and concepts of service and I have a God of my understanding that says, just be you, right? And so when I think about your theme of your convention, celebration of recovery, what comes up for me is that how I honor my recovery is I celebrate every day. You know, and so back to Hollywood. So they told me I was going to Hollywood, and I thought I was going to be a star. So, you know, even though I know in my head that it's about just being me, because that's what God told me to do, is just be you. And so the night before I got on the plane, 2 o'clock in the morning, I jump up out of bed, wide awake, because I need to find the proper outfit. So I tried on all the clothes in my closet. So by 6 o'clock, I'm like dead ass tired. And what I wore on the plane was jeans. I didn't become a star, but I come to Canada and you guys got a damn camera sitting right here. So maybe, no, I'm kidding. So I go to Dallas. Ooh, that's irritating. So I go to Dallas, and I think I'm going to be in a rodeo, right? None of the boots that I took to Dallas were cowboy boots. You know, and I say all that to say that most of the time, I'm okay in my skin, but when I'm a little off kilter, I'm not. And so I will try to be whatever and whoever you guys want me to be, right? Because no matter how much time I have, you know, I told you that I got off the plane. Who got off the plane was a little scared little girl, right? And it doesn't matter that I come to a fellowship where you guys tell me that you'll love me until I can learn how to love myself, but I'm in an unfamiliar place. And so one more time, this person who grew up always being less than, I start to feel like that. So I knew that I was following Kermit, damn it, right? How do you follow that? But let me tell you my story about Kermit. No, unlike some of your other folks, my story is not, it's not going to talk about how bad you are. When I had 3 years clean, Kermit came to Northern California. And he shared, and I just thought, wow, one day I want to do that. Because you guys heard him last night. He's amazing. So in a program where our dreams come true, and you can do anything that you want to do, I come to Canada and I'm sharing in the same convention where Kermit is. And I am honored, and I am grateful, and I am blessed. And I shared with him when I saw him, because this is some of the things that happened for me in recovery, is that I've learned that my predecessors are human beings, right? And so I'm glad that this program has taught me that this is about progress, not perfection, and that we do stand on the shoulders of our predecessors, and I'm glad that they still come because they still show me how to do this one day at a time and not use, right? So the next time I saw Kermit, so this is the one, Kermit. The next time I saw Kermit was at a world convention, and I believe it was in St. Louis. Was it St. Louis that I saw you? I don't remember, but anyway, it was a world convention, and he had this hat on. Okay. This retarded looking hat. It looked like a Mad Hatter's hat, and it had candles all over it. It was San Diego because your birthday's in September. And so I thought, he is really sick. He is walking around wearing that retarded looking hat, right? But he was celebrating his recovery, right? And so I am honored to be here with you because as a new member in recovery in those days, I needed role models to hang on to, and it's like, and I don't know about you, but I always hung out with the people that had a whole lot of time, because if it was up to me to hang out with people that had the same amount of time I had during those days, all it would take was for one of us to get an idea, right? And it would be over. So early on, I hung out with a lot of people that had time. So let me tell you a little bit about me. I'm black and Filipino. I look Puerto Rican. I grew up confused. I used drugs. That's my story. I don't need to tell you how many tables I danced on or how many times I woke up with people I didn't know. You guys know, right? I don't need to tell you, I don't believe in drug-a-logs. I don't need to talk about that, because this is about my recovery. This is my experience, my strength, my hope. You guys know how to use, right? When I first got clean, I didn't think that I had a story to share, and the reason why I didn't think I had a story to share is because I didn't go to jail. You know, I didn't go to jail. I didn't prostitute myself. I didn't do a lot of things that a lot of people did. And so I never wanted to come and share my story because I didn't think it was rough enough, right? I didn't think it was rough enough, but what I know today is that there's a whole lot of people that had jobs and used, right? I have a story to share, you know? And so just because I didn't prostitute myself doesn't mean that I didn't sell myself short, right? And so what I know today is that if you look up the word addict, all of our pictures would be up there like a school roster, like a school picture, right? And it doesn't say, but he only used pot. Or she only used prescription meds. Because the behavior takes us to those places. And if you're in this room, ooh, how could I do that? How many people in here have less than a year clean? Come on. Welcome to Narcotics Anonymous. And my hope and my prayer for you is that you find half of what I have found here. I hope that you stay. Relapse doesn't have to be a part of your story. Let me say that. You know, because I'm one of those addicts that if you would have told me that relapse was a part of my story or that it was a part of recovery, I would have used. And so, contrary to popular belief, it doesn't have to be a part of your story. You can just stay. My clean date, and I'm not saying this for the applause. I'm saying it because I want the newcomers to know that you can stay clean one day at a time and you don't have to leave. Right? So my clean date is March 2nd, 1993, and I haven't left. And so if you're new in this camp, what I want to tell you is that when I first got clean, there was one sentence that I hung on to with everything I have. And if you're new and you're wondering if you belong here, normal people don't come to Narcotics Anonymous. Just so you know, right? Normal people don't get DUIs. Normal people don't have cases open with Department of Family Services, right? And so what I know about all of that stuff, and Doug said it on Friday night, you know, we come in here with a whole lot of issues. But if we focus on the one issue that Narcotics Anonymous is about, and that's our recovery, the rest of it will take care of itself, right? And so if you're new in this room and you don't think you belong, please keep coming. Please keep coming. You know, all of a sudden the butterflies went away. You know, and so, Jeff, where are you? Please stand up. That's my friend Jeff. And this is why I'm calling you out, my friend. Because this is on a recorded CD. I challenge your ass to stay clean. And I also called you out because I wanted to thank you for being one of those people that came and welcomed me with open arms. And when you shared that you were a newcomer, it made my heart warm, and he's one of the reasons why I'm here, right? Okay, you can sit down now. And there's a lot of people in this room that I want to thank for allowing me to be who I am. And there's 2 Dianes, and oh, there she is. There's the other one. You have no idea how you touched me last night, right? And I will tell you that my recovery is very impressionable, and it means something to me today when people just kind of embrace me. And people have done things to me all weekend. They have no idea how much they've touched me since I've been here. And so, the 2 Dianes, I see you, Ben. You're not getting away from me this weekend either. I'll save it for a little bit. I was sitting in the room last night, and Diane walked up to me. She was walking past me, and she said, "You have such a welcoming face. I see so much love in you." And I appreciate that. You know, because the person that you see today is not the person that walked in here 19 years ago. You know, and so I told you that I'm black and I'm Filipino and I look Puerto Rican and I grew up confused. And so I got beat up every day because I was light-skinned, and I don't know what good hair is, but I guess this is it. And the black kids didn't like me because I was mixed, and the Filipino kids didn't like me because I was half black. And so I got beat up every day, and I didn't have parents who had the wherewithal to say, you know, sometimes people do things for whatever reasons, but it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. And so all my life I believed that there was something wrong with who I was. And so I got loaded, because when I got loaded, I was cute enough, I was smart enough, I was everything enough, right? And so I come to a fellowship. You know, I started using when I was 16, and I stopped when I was 36. And I got clean in Sacramento, California, and you know, I always share this because I know that I'm not the only one. And when I went to my first meeting, I needed a reason to identify. And so I walked into that meeting, and I like check out the room before I say this, but there's enough diversity in here that I'm sure you guys will know what I'm talking about. I went to my first meeting, and it was mighty light in there. There was nobody that looked like me. And so I'm one of those addicts. I quit using drugs because I was tired of the life, right? Not because I didn't lose anything. I didn't have an everything must go sale at 2 o'clock in the morning. I was just tired, you know? And so when I got clean, I was just ready. And so I went to this meeting, and my sponsor at the time, you know, after the meeting, I went to her and I said, "What's up with this?" And she goes, "What?" And I said, "Do black people recover?" She goes, "Why do you ask?" And I said, "Because I don't see any." And you know, and the truth be told, it didn't matter who was in that room. It could have been blue and green and purple Martians. I wasn't okay in my skin. I share this because if you're sitting in this room and you feel like you don't belong, keep coming, right? Because there's not one of you that could kick me out of this camp today. You know, and so I've learned how to appreciate my diversity. I've learned how to appreciate the differences. I've learned how to appreciate that we don't need to look exactly the same. We don't need to keep, you know, come from the same places. It doesn't matter who our connections are, right? I can appreciate that today, but I couldn't when I first got here. So being the addict that I was, when she told me that, she goes, "Well, maybe you can share that the next time you come." Right? All I needed was a reason. So I built a federal case about why I didn't need to come back. You know, and so I got gangster the next weekend, and I went into the meeting ready to talk about why I didn't need to come back, and there were 5 black people sitting in the meeting. And I couldn't share, right? So I've learned that it doesn't matter who we are, we just come. You know, and so how I honor my recovery, it's like, it's so amazing to me today, because all of a sudden, the reason why I'm the Sunday morning spiritual speaker, the puzzle pieces fit, right? And so my life in recovery has been truly amazing. You know, and I don't know about anybody else, but when I got here, they told me that I needed to change everything about the way I think. Right? I needed to change people, places, and things. And so, you know, being the addict that I am, it's like I do things either all the way over here or all the way over here. This is unfamiliar territory, right? And so I've learned since I've been here how to try to find some balance, you know? And so I believe that the cup is half full. I believe that things happen for a reason. I believe that God puts in my path whatever it is that I'm supposed to deal with. You know, and as a result of me believing that way, the path of recovery has been just a little bit easier, right? Because I don't have the why me's and how come, and it just makes it a lot harder. You know, and so it always makes me smile when I hear people say, "I've been sitting on my 4th step for about 9 months." Because when we were out in the world, right, doing what we did, we were never afraid to put stuff in, right? You put I don't know, how many people use meth? They make that shit with Drano, right? You weren't afraid to ingest that. But people are afraid to work steps when they come into Narcotics Anonymous. What's up with that? Those of you that use Brillo pads on your pipe, it just amazes me what we're not willing to do when we get in recovery, when we do all kinds of stuff out there, right? The amazing thing about working steps today is that we've already done that stuff. All you have to do is write it down and dump it. So if you're afraid, work it out. Work it out. You know, because the freedom is so worth the effort. You know, and so sometimes my sponsees hate me. You know, I'm one of those sponsors that I don't co-sign your bullshit. You know, and one of the blessings for me is that early on I dealt with my codependency issues. So I'm not carrying the addict. You know, and so what I tell my sponsees a lot of times is, this is your recovery. I'm not going to chase you. You know, this is what I expect from you. You either do it or you don't. And it always amazes me that when I say that, sometimes I get fired for a job that I was never hired for. Or that I don't get paid for, right? If you're going to fire me, pay me first. You know, and we live in a day and age, and I just have to say this because this is one of my pet peeves. I understand that technology is wonderful. Don't send me a text message to check in. You didn't get loaded by text. Don't fire me by text or email either, right? And just so many things get lost. I got clean in a time when, you know, they said work the steps or die, you know, and I didn't have to sign a little profanity statement when I got here about sharing here, which kind of gives me permission to cuss. But I'm not gonna, if I can help it. And this is why I'm not gonna. Because in celebrating my recovery, one of the things that I celebrate is the fact that I'm becoming a better human being. It's not okay for me to continue to say, what do you expect? I'm an addict. No. I don't want to be the reason why people say Narcotics Anonymous doesn't work, because this is about getting a life back, right? I never had a life. I never, you know, it always amazes me when people say, I'm getting my life back. I never had one. I used to live and live to use. And I think some of you guys did that too. So where did you have a life? Right? And so I come into Narcotics Anonymous, and just like I was the best dope fiend there was out there, because if you told me that getting loaded like this and doing my screen like this was going to make it better, guess what? I was going to do it like that. You know, and so I was a good dope fiend. I picked up stuff really quickly. I could roll a joint with one hand. You know what I mean? And so drop the seeds out the end. I could do that. You know, and so in recovery, I want to be the best possible recovering person that I can be, because I heard Doug say it the other night. I may be the only basic text another dope fiend sees. I don't represent Narcotics Anonymous, but guess what? I do. You know, so it is not okay for me to wear Narcotics Anonymous shirts or have bumper stickers on my car and having road rage. Driving down the road, flipping people off. Right? It's not okay for me to do that. It's not okay for me to wear Narcotics Anonymous gear and be sitting in a casino pulling a slot machine. I'm talking about me, not you. Right? So me being in recovery, it's important to me that the things that I learn here, because it's about how I'm living, right? It's about how I'm living. And so it's easy for me to come in here and smile and do service with you guys, but what do I do when I go home? Go home, right? Do you kick the dog? Do you beat your kids? You know what I mean? And so I need to carry what I learn here into the way that I live, because I believe that there are two kinds of people in Narcotics Anonymous. Well, three. There's those who perpetrate. There's those who plan their lives around NA. And then there are those who incorporate NA into the way they live. And I would like to think that I am the latter, right? Because Narcotics Anonymous gives you everything you need to have the most amazing life you could ever dream of. It's up to you what you do with it, right? And so it is not okay. I didn't come in here to be a mediocre recovering addict, right? I didn't. And I don't say that to be boastful. I say that because they told me that I could have the life of my dreams. I see other people having it, right? When I was out there in the world and I was doing dope and people said, this is some good shit, it's, oh, damn it. Okay. Damn it, Doug. This is some good shit. No, I'm kidding. When I was out there in the world and there was some good dope, I did whatever I could to get a hold of it. So in recovery, this is the best dope I've ever had, right? The steps give me the opportunity to change who I am, right? This is the only place that I know that you guys give me instructions on how to change my life and how to change the things about myself that I don't like, right? The traditions are in place so that we learn how to play well in the sandbox with other people. Those of you that go to area service know that's true. And then we have the concepts of service. And so let me tell you that I no longer have to announce to the world that I'm a drug addict in recovery. I don't tell people unless I just really want to share it. You know, when I was newly clean, I told everybody. I wore the shirts, I wore the earrings, I wore the everything. I was just like the poster child for recovery. And so today I share it if I we're so solid in this program. And so what happened was my son got murdered by 2 dope fiends.
It's the hotel equipment.
Thank you. My son got murdered by 2 dope fiends. And because of the faith and the belief and the trust that I have in this program and in the God of my understanding, what I understood more than anything is that if my son was still meant to be here, he'd be here. That it was a part of the plan, and I don't need to understand what the plan was. I was grateful that I had him. I had my son for 20 years, and he was a good kid, right? He wasn't in a gang. He was a new dad. And I understood why he was a dad at 19, even though what I wanted to say was, God darn it, why didn't you use a rubber? But today I understand that the reason why he didn't use a rubber is because my grandson is supposed to be here, right? And so I have a 13-year-old grandson who's never seen his grandma loaded, and he thinks I'm pretty cool. And because of my recovery, and because of what my recovery means to me, I'm able to share my life with this little kid and share with him all the things about how my life has changed, and he never needs to know that I'm a dope fiend, right? So when I went to Hollywood, I was talking to him about, he asked me what I was doing, and I says, I'm just kind of looking at my book to figure out what it is that I'm going to share. And he said, what do you have to, are you supposed to talk about something? He said subject, not topic, right? Do you have a subject? And I said, well, it's kind of about unity. And so God puts things in my path to let me know that I'm doing the right thing, you know? And so when I have this little, at the time he was like, I don't know, he was 11, I think, when we were talking about that. And at that moment, I felt like God had just embraced my heart and my soul, because it was like all the effort and all the work is so worth it. Right? Because he puts things in my life like that. And this little boy who knows nothing, he's been to one meeting with me, you know? And so that one meeting, he had no idea where he was. He was playing outside, and when it got too dark, he came and he sat next to me, and he found some kids that he could play with out there. And so he was only in the meeting for like 15 minutes. And so on the way home, you know, I never said anything to him. And I'm looking at him in the rearview mirror, and he goes, Grandma, those people use drugs? You know, and I don't feel like I need to hide who I am, right? Because as a result of my experience, I'm who I am today. You know, and I'm grateful for the lessons that I've had. And so I looked at him and I said, they used to. I said, and so the reason why I went to that meeting is because we all share that common thing that we all used to use drugs and we don't anymore. And so now we talk about how it is that we stay clean. So then I'm looking at him really closely now, because now he's like, the wheels are really going. I can see smoke coming out of his ears, right? So then he says, did you use drugs, Grandma? I used to, but I don't anymore. That's the last conversation we've had about that. You know, and so he thinks I listen to cool music. You know, and I told him I'm old, I'm not dead. You know. And so the blessing for me, one of them, is that I honor and I celebrate my recovery by how I live. You know, and so my grandson has no clue. I need to tell you that I am the only one in my family that's in recovery. So if there's anybody in here that's in recovery and there's no other people in your family and you're doing it by yourself, and if you're the crazy one, you're not alone. Right? And I want to tell you how dismal that feels. You know, because I told you that my glass is always half full. But there are days when I don't know about anybody else. There's two things that will take me out, three things that will take me out of here quicker than anything I know. Family issues, relationship issues, and death. Right? And so I've had all of those. And so I am the crazy one in my family. Still. I have recovered without the benefit of my family just because. And so they think I'm the crazy one. And so I'll be the crazy one because I have a life today that I wouldn't trade for anything in the world, right? And so let me talk about relationships for a second. When I had 6 months clean, and I'm saying this for the newcomer, maybe for the newcomer, it might be for somebody, for an old timer too. Probably. When I had 6 months clean, I was in an aftercare program, and I went and talked to my counselor, and she said, I don't know what made her ask me this, but she said, do you know what you want in, no. She goes, do you know what you want in your ideal relationship? Or do you know what you want in a relationship? And I said, hell yeah, I know. You know, because when we have 6 months, we know everything. You know, and so she says, well, what do you want? And so I gave her this long laundry list of everything that I wanted in my ideal man, and she just started laughing, right? She goes, what would a man like that want with you? I was highly offended. So she said, get a piece of paper and write ideal man at the top. And so I challenge you guys to do this. If you're a guy, write ideal woman. She said, and I want you to write down everything that you want that person to be. And I'm looking at her, right, because I've already got a resentment. And I called her the B word in my head. She says, write down everything you want that person to be. She says, and when you get done with writing the list, she said, cross off ideal man and write your name up there. And when you learn how to live that, you'll attract that. And so today I attract guys that have jobs. And they have 401ks. I said all that to say is that if you want to know how crazy your life is, it probably has something to do with you. Water seeks its own level, right? And so if you focus on your recovery and find a God of your understanding, what happens is your life gets better. You know, when I first got clean, and there was this man in Sacramento, and he used to really irritate the hell out of me because he was old as dirt. He was 76 years old, and he went to meetings every day, and I could never figure that out. And he used to always stand up, and he talked really loud, right? And he talked about how this program is a program of time and change, and if you want to see your life change, you got to stick around and do the time, right? And so then I found out after I had been here for a while that the reason why he talked loud is because he was deaf in one ear. Judgment is amazing, right? And so when that man died a few years ago, he died with over 47 years of recovery. And I am so grateful to him because one of the things that he did for me in my recovery early on is I caught a resentment, a big one, with him. I had a lot of resentments with a lot of people in my early recovery until I did some work. And I caught a resentment because he said, look around the room. He says, because only 2% of you will be here, your friends will get loaded. Not everybody makes it, right? So my resentment was, I'm going to show you. I'm staying clean. And I've stayed clean, right? And so, but he said to me, you're going to have to do the work. And so last night, how many of you guys were here for the countdown? Okay. You know, for those of you that are new that have less than a year clean, I hope that when I share this with you, that you'll pay attention in the years to come, in the days to come, in the weeks to come, that when you're in an environment where they do a countdown, that you look at the numbers from like when they start at the highest to see how many people stand up. How many people stood up last night for 31 years? 2. 1 for 30, right? And then the lower it got, the more numbers you saw. So what that means to me is that the road gets narrower, right? More is required the longer you stay here. And so it is no longer okay for you to just get by in recovery. Because at some point, you're going to have to do some work if you want to stay. The look good will start falling apart. Right? There's a couple things I want to touch on because I know that I don't have forever to talk. How many of you guys do Facebook? How many of you guys are taking pictures at this convention? How many of you have posted them? I know there's more of you than that. I love how they read the anonymity statement, because when we talk about anonymity, it goes more than just about who you see in meetings. If you're posting pictures on Facebook, did you ask the people, could you post them? Yeah. How many of you guys announce NA events on Facebook? This is an honest program. Facebook is a wonderful tool, and I share this because I think that it's our obligation. If we're an addict and we know some information, it's our obligation to share it if you know something, right? And so I think that in the face of anonymity and technology and blah, 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 that it is our responsibility to protect people's anonymity. It's not okay for you to take pictures of me at this convention and then post them on Facebook if you haven't asked me if it's okay. And so I'm just saying, and if we're using Facebook as a tool to announce NA events, it's okay to do that if you know what you're doing. It's not okay for you to invite everybody on your friends list and have everybody else have the ability to see who you invited and who's responding and all that stuff. If you're going to use Facebook, know what you're using. If you don't know, ask somebody, right? It's really important that we respect anonymity regardless of where we're at. It's still important. It's about courtesy and respect, right? And so, okay, so I'll get off my Facebook soapbox, and I just needed to say that because it's like, people don't talk about that. I find it really offensive when I go to somebody's page or they ask me for my permission to show this picture that somebody has posted of me and I don't even know they took it. But I see it and it's always the ugliest picture. Right? It's always the ugliest picture with my mouth open or I'm stuffing food in my mouth or something. Not favorable, but I mean, courtesy and respect, we owe it to each other to do that. And so the other thing I want to talk about, 2 things. How many of you guys gossip? Hello, everybody raise their hand. And this is what I want to say about that. We all come to this fellowship. The one thing that we have in common is that we are here to learn to live life without the use of drugs. But what also we do is that we learn how to live life, and we learn how to have relationships, and we learn how to be around people, and we learn how to get along. And so if you want to be a friend, if you want to have friends, you need to learn how to be one. And one of the things that I know is that, and I talk about this because I'm not one of those people that makes little mistakes. If I'm going to do something, you guys will know because it's this big, right? And so I have to share with you a lesson that I learned about gossiping and making fun of people, right? Northern California convention one year. It's always amazing to me when people have control issues at the podium and like they stop talking because they're trying to control the crowd and they just like stop talking and they look at you like you're supposed to stop talking just because they got quiet, right? And so That happened one of the years in Northern California, and the secretary at the main speaker meeting got quiet, and she's looking at everybody, and I just thought, you know what, this is really stupid, I'm leaving, right? So I left. So I went back to the hotel, and I was holding court. I was holding court in the lobby, and so all my friends were sitting in front of me because I'm the clown, and I'm standing up, and I'm just doing all this stuff about what she was doing. I was imitating her. So my friends are laughing, and I'm thinking, this shit wasn't that funny. So then I do this. I look right down her throat. I saw pain on her face that I put there. And it is not okay that I do that to people, right? So one of the things that I've learned in Narcotics Anonymous, that how I treat people is real important, because what I put out there, I get back. So if you're wondering, women, when you're talking about that other woman, calling her names or judging her, next week it'll be your turn. And so just keep that in mind. Karma is a bitch. You know, and so, you know, and I share that because when we come into recovery, we bring all our stuff with us. You know, and so I told you that this is about becoming a better human being. You know, and I don't want to be a reason why a newcomer says that shit don't work. I hope you're saying that it don't work because you worked some stuff. So although I don't represent Narcotics Anonymous, I do. You know, and it means something to me how I behave, you know, and how I carry myself. And so one of the things that I wanted to be true for my daughter, I never wanted to have a whole bunch of uncles coming in and out. You guys act like I'm the only one. I always wanted to carry myself in a way that my daughter would be proud to say that I'm her mother. And so I talked a little bit about my children. My son got murdered, and what I wanted to share about that is that, you know, because one of our spiritual principles is forgiveness. And so I've talked a little bit about resentment. And one of the things that I know and I've learned in this program is that in order for me to live a fulfilling life, that I need to let go of the resentment. Because if anybody in here is sitting in resentment, it's like one of the questions I ask my sponsees, and I'm going to ask you, how's that working for you? You know what I mean? Because it's like we get so caught up. I watch Oprah, and it always, you know, I always have a aha moment when I watch that. And I remember she was talking about her being in resentment and how she was just like stuck in resentment, and how she was watching this woman. She was in a department store, and this woman who she had a resentment for was coming through the door. So you know how we are with resentment. It's like we go through this whole thing. We have this whole scenario, this whole blockbuster movie going on in our head about the resentment. She said the lady came in and said, "Hey, how you doing?" And she kept on going. Oprah was stuck with the blockbuster movie playing in her head, and she was pissed off, and she was stuck. You know, and right then I got it. It's like I'm the one that's stuck. The other person that went on about their business, they could really give a rat's ass about what I'm thinking. And how's that working for me? So when my son was killed, I found out that while this kid who killed my son, who was 19 years old, while he was sitting in jail, they found 2 other murders that he committed in 30 days. He got arrested for the murder of my son. The other 2 murders were people that he knew, but it was, he lived a lifestyle where that was commonplace. You know, and so Narcotics Anonymous has taught me to have empathy and compassion. I don't condone what that kid did to my son. I worked in social services for over 32 years. The same population that goes through the welfare office, goes through the court, goes through drug rehab, right? So I have an understanding. I worked in treatment. I saw this kid's mother. His mother was a crackhead. Did he have a chance? Probably not. I understand where he came from. He grew up in the system. He lived a life the only life he knew. Narcotics Anonymous taught me how to forgive this kid. And so what I will tell you about that, I belong to the No Matter What Club. And so no matter what, no matter what, this program shows me how to live my life despite me, right? And so I told you, did I tell you the sentence in the basic text that I held on to? I didn't tell you, did I? Let me go back there. Never have we seen a person who lives the Narcotics Anonymous program relapse. Never. So what that means is that if you come into recovery and you live this program, that means work the steps. Okay, so when I got into recovery, they told me to do 5 things. Go to meetings, get a sponsor, work the steps, be of service, don't use. Newcomers with 19 years clean, I still do that, right? Because those are the basics of the program. You know, and so whenever I'm feeling out of kilter, what I need to do is like rededicate myself to my recovery. And the rest of that stuff works itself out. You know, and so it doesn't change no matter how much time I have. The distance to the dope house, in case you guys are wondering, is the same, no matter how much time you have. Whether you have 2 weeks, 2 days, 2 hours, 2 minutes, 2 years, 20 years, 200 years. What stops me from copping is how diligent I work a program. And so it says, never have we seen a person who lives the Narcotics Anonymous program relapse, right? And so that is the one sentence in the book that I've held on to for 19 years that keeps me motivated to do this program. And so, is anybody keeping time on how much time I have to speak? You got. Stand up, Ben. Stand up. You know, when I checked in at the hotel on Friday, Ben was at the desk. All I could see was his head. Did you ever see that movie? I can't remember the name of it. It's an old black and white movie, and it was just the head in a box. That's what it reminded me of when I saw you. I told you I'd get you. He's been messing with me the whole time I've been here. He said I had Tourette's syndrome. He said that I was going to get up here and go. So I just told you I would get you. I love you. You know, I totally lost my place. Oh, forgiveness. And so it was really important to me and for me and my recovery that I forgive this kid. And I knew when the DA came and asked me how I felt about the death penalty, that I knew that there was a shift in my thought process and in my life, because what I said to the DA is that I don't know that I want this kid to die. But what I do know is that I want his family to live without him like we live without my son. And then I had to like run in the bathroom and look in the mirror because I didn't know who that was that said that, right? Because in that moment, what I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt is that the program that I come to totally has changed my life. You know, and so I knew that when I could put forgiveness out there with the most life-changing event that ever happened to me in my life, the most devastating event that ever happened to me in my life, I knew that this is a pretty incredible program, right? And so if you're sitting here in resentment, please, please, please find your way to forgiveness, because it will truly set you free, right? And so, as if that wasn't big enough, you know, this program, you know, you hear a lot of people talk about the healing that takes place, you know, and so when I talked about early on, and when I talked about my family, you know, my dad was in the military, and very regimented man, very proud man, very old school kind of guy. And I told you I was the dope fiend. I was the black sheep, and I'm still the black sheep. And so part of what's happened in the last year, 15 months, I got laid off my job January 2011, and I was unemployed for 15 months. And I don't know about anybody else, but broke is not a good feel or a look for me. And so just to kind of illustrate what it's been like, I was on unemployment, and my unemployment was $1,800. I have a 3-bedroom house, right? And so along with the rent and all of that other stuff that comes along with having a house, I got $1,800 a month in unemployment, and my rent was $1,435. Do the math. So for 15 months, somewhere along in that process, I had to give up a car. I don't know about anybody else, but I kind of like hang on till the wheels fall off, right? Anybody else like that? I know some of you guys are in those relationships that you should have been out of, because wait, how many of you guys are in relationships that are past the expiration date? Just kidding. You know, I hang on till the wheels fall off. And so I share with you how God works in my life, because I'm one of those dope fiends. I'm from Missouri. You have to show me something, right? I need a God of my understanding to like help me see that he has my back, right? And so usually it's material stuff that I need him to show me, right? I'm sick. You know, just show me that you have me, right? And so for the past, when I was unemployed 15 months, I didn't lose my house. You know, there were things that didn't get paid. I had to juggle $340 in all kinds of creative ways, right? I never robbed banks, but it became attractive. You guys, what's so funny about that? I never turned a trick, but it became attractive. And the only reason why I didn't do either one of those is because I'm scared of jail, right? And I probably wouldn't know how to ask you for my money if I turned a trick. That's sad. So what happened when I was unemployed is I rededicated myself to my recovery, because they told me that that's what I was supposed to do. And I had people that came in. I stand on the shoulders of my predecessors, and here's the blessing. When all those people Diane, and Kermit, and the other Diane over here. When you guys come in and you talk about what's going on in your life, and I look at you and I think, they're crazy. But really what's happening is thank you for sharing. Because when they share what's going on in their life at 30 years clean, and they're still here, and they're still coming to meetings, and they're still talking about what is going on in their lives, it gives me the courage to talk about what's going on in mine, and it gives me courage to stay. Right? And so when I talk about I can't afford to make a payment on my car, and I start coming to believe that it's time for me to give it up, because what I know is that God cleans my house, and when I allow that to happen, he replaces it with things that are far greater, right? And so I don't know if you guys have Alano clubs here, but we have Alano clubs in California, and I used to hate, I still do, I hate sharing there. And the reason why I hate sharing there is because every single time it seems like I'm sharing there, it's always that I have to get butt naked and tell the truth, right? So it isn't about the Alano Club, it's the fact that I don't like telling the truth, right? And so when it came time for me, and this is right around the time that I shared at our convention, and I have to tell you that I love this convention because this convention is intimate to me, right? I come from a place where Northern California's convention is about 8,000 to 10,000 people. Okay, so this is cool to me, right? This is personal to me. And so anyway, I was sharing at the Alano Club about how Narcotics Anonymous has taught me to be a productive member of society, right? It's taught me to pay my bills on time. Right? Because I need to tell you that I'm a dope fiend, that how I figured out that I could get rid of debt, file bankruptcy. You get credit cards, you charge them up, file bankruptcy. That's not funny, I did it 4 times. And I'm not saying that to brag, I'm saying that because when you know better, you do better, right? And so I came from a place where I had a checking account at 16. I thought it was okay to write checks. Nobody told me I had to put money in, right? Nobody said, before you write checks, you need to deposit some money. So at 17, I had NSF checks all over town. Just not knowing. You know, so when I tell you that Narcotics Anonymous has taught me how to live, I'm talking about basic stuff. Right? And so anyway, I'm talking about how funky it feels that after being here for a while, you know, because the book talks about us being jobless, homeless, penniless, how it doesn't feel good when you can't do something that you've been accustomed to doing. And so I'm sharing at the Alano Club about not being able to pay my bills, and I can't pay my car payment, and I'm hiding my car in the garage. And how funky that feels. So after the meeting, this guy comes up and he goes, hide it in the garage. What? He said, I'm a repo man. So he's going to tell me how to hide my car. So in Northern California last year, I was asked to be the Thursday night speaker for the convention. And so, you know, and I'm sharing this because this is how God works in my life, and he says, I got you, right? Because remember, it was like, just be you, right? And I got you. And so I was unemployed, and normally I haven't missed the Northern California convention in 18 years. And so I'm always there. So last year, it was going to be a little difficult because I wasn't working. I told you I had $340 to work with, right? And so I was sitting at my computer, and I just looked at my reservation because I always make my reservation ahead of time, and I'm thinking, God, I really want to go. I don't want to miss it, but I don't know how I'm going to do it this time. Please work it out. So an email pops up. It says invitation to speak. Right? So here's the funny part. I got clean in Sacramento, and that was where the convention was that year, right? And so I got clean in Sacramento, and I was asked to share. I was asked to be the opening speaker. And so I go back to the place that I got clean with 18 years clean. They always have, when they have the convention at the Hyatt in Sacramento, they always have it at the Hyatt. And so I got fired from the Hyatt. I got fired from the Hyatt when they were first building the Hyatt, and so I don't know if anybody's worked in the hotel industry, but usually employees go in a different place. They don't walk through the front door. You go in a different way. And so I went through the employee entrance, and I put my purse up on the counter, and a pipe rolled out. So I got pink slipped on the spot. And so this is my God. I go back to the place that I got clean, with 18 years clean, to the hotel that I got fired from. I'm the opening speaker, and the theme was welcome home. Right? So when the phone call came for this convention, and I've gotten a chance to get to know John a little bit, and we've had several conversations, and he kind of walked with me through some things. And I told you that my family is like a really sensitive issue. And so in the last year, my father got sick last April. And so when I went to that convention and I shared, it was difficult, right? Because my dad got sick, and there's only 2 of us siblings. And so I showed up for my dad. And so what I'll tell you about that is Narcotics Anonymous has allowed me the opportunity to show up. And I didn't know it at the time. But when my mom told me my dad was sick, I was Johnny on the spot. She didn't have to tell me, would you? I just did. I just showed up. And I showed up in a way I gave 150%. And they were trying to get my dad to go to the hospital, and he wouldn't go. You know, my dad was one of those old school people that he didn't believe in doctors. Anybody have parents like that? They don't believe in doctors, right? And so I took Narcotics Anonymous with me, and I gave him a couple choices. 911 or me. So he took me. And I took him to the hospital, and he had all these things wrong with him. And so what I want to share with some of you that is smoke, he had COPD, and my dad smoked for 45 years, and it was the most debilitating thing I've ever seen a human being deal with, is the aftermath of smoking. And so he got better for a time, but one of the things that I realized is that the reason why I was unemployed, because I told you how my God works, right? One of the reasons why I was unemployed is that I needed to be available to help my mom with my dad. And so my parents, I told you that I recovered without them, and I just want to illustrate a picture for you. I've been clean for 19 years. My parents don't even know where I live. They don't even know who I am. They're still judging me based on what I did 19 years ago. So the family that I've chosen for myself is you guys. And what I realize about going and showing up and taking care of my dad is that the person that showed up there was that little 12-year-old girl who never got validated by her parents, right? And so I showed up because I wanted them to know that I love them and I care about them and see what I'm doing, right? So my dad got better. Around May, June, he was back to doing what he was doing. And in November, he got diagnosed with brain cancer. And so I showed up again. And I took care of my dad. And so what happened was my unemployment was about to run out, and I told my dad, I says, I don't mind doing this, but I need some help. It's like we can hire somebody to take care of you. I says, I don't want to really get paid, but I need to keep my house afloat. So my dad's response was, you're always trying to beat me out of my money. So what I want to tell you about what Narcotics Anonymous has taught me, I want to share with you that communication is key, right? If we don't sit down and talk about what our expectations are, things go haywire. And so things went haywire because what his expectation was and what my expectation was, they did like this. So when he said he didn't think it was worth paying me, my reaction was, and I need to go find a job, I got to go. And so I left. And what I will tell you is that I caused harm. And I didn't see it at the time because I'm an addict in recovery and I have an S on my chest. Dun, 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 here I am to save the day. And so after I had a chance to make amends, and what happened was my father had to find another way to take care of himself. My mother had to find somebody to show up because I left. And I knew I had to go back and make amends, and so I went back that following weekend and I went to go see my dad, and he forgave me. And he said to me, I thank you for taking care of me. He says, but I don't think I can trust you anymore. And I just looked at him and I go, what do you mean? I showed up for you. And he said, because I'm in my darkest time. He says, and when it didn't go your way, you left. And so I don't believe that you're here to take care of me anymore. So with 19 years clean, I caused harm. And so I had to look at that. And I had to take it. You know, and so my father passed away April 16th. And I had to forgive myself because Narcotics Anonymous taught me that I could. And so knowing that, when I know better, I can do better, right? And so what I want to tell you is that I bring my dad and I honor his memory here in celebration of my recovery. And I want to share with you in closing something that I wrote because, you know, I don't know about you, but spiritual principles to me is how I live my life, and they govern my life. And so I want to share this with you. How many spiritual principles are in the book? My name is Ava, and I'm an independent woman of integrity. By incorporating the spiritual principles in my life, I realize that I must be honest with myself in order to be able to accept my addiction. I never knew that by just surrendering that I would get the ray of hope I needed to make the commitment to this program called Narcotics Anonymous. I understand that if I walk in faith and trust that the God of my understanding will give me the courage and willingness to persevere during times of adversity. I know that as long as I practice humility and open-mindedness, that I will remain teachable. Through life's lessons, I have been blessed with an awareness that the more God-centered I am, the more vigilant I am, the more I practice self-discipline, the more I'm able to see the optimism, the unconditional love, and the unity that this program and fellowship has to offer. I understand that to fellowship means that we share with and care about one another, that we also exercise patience and tolerance as we make this journey together. In order for me to become the person I know God wants me to be, I have to change from negative to positive thinking, learn to forgive myself for the things I've done, so that I may treat others with love, kindness, compassion, consideration, because that is how I want to be treated. And lastly, that I take responsibility for being a productive member of this fellowship and society by doing selfless service to the fellowship that gave me my life with an attitude of gratitude and the spirit of anonymity. Thank you, Orkna, for having an addict like me. My name is Ava, and I'm an addict.